What is going on, everybody? This is the Fourth and Fantasy Podcast, episode 31, coming your way. My name's Meek. I got my co-host to the left, Wu.
What up?
Wu, we're in the dog days of summer, man. Training camp has started. Would you believe it that we have a football game on Thursday?
No, I don't really believe it, to be honest.
Believe it, baby.
Oh, my God.
And it's your boy. The Chargers are playing. I think it's Chargers-Lions Hall of Fame game, so
yeah.
You know I'm going to be watching that game.
Oh, yeah. I'm probably going to watch, like, the first two drives and then realize, why am I watching fourth-string guys who aren't going to make the team? And then I'll turn it off, and then I'll realize, you know what, there's nothing else on, so I'll turn it back on. And it'll just be a never-ending cycle.
Absolutely. Just want to give a quick piece of breaking news that came across my Twitter feed for you, Zach Marzano. Chargers head coach Jim Harbaugh says that Omarion Hampton, Trey Harris are going to play Thursday. And then he said every receiver not named Lad McConkey or Quentin Johnson are going to play. So QJ looks like he's in the starting lineup, baby. He might be that guy.
Do they have a choice to put him in the starting lineup?
Listen, if you look at the clips that he has put out in training camp, you think he's a starter. That's all I'm going to say.
Right.
But anyways, welcome again. We've hit 1,600 plus plays across Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and YouTube. That is thanks to the folks who are listening as you are right now, the folks who are watching right now. We love you. Keep it going. Make sure you're following us on all of our socials, Twitter at Fourth and Fantasy Pod, Instagram and TikTok at Fourth and Fantasy, YouTube at Fourth and Fantasy. Please give us a like, a follow, a share, a rating, and leave a comment because you may see yourself on the show. I told Woo before we hit record, I didn't have a quick question today, but Woo's got us prepared with a quick question of the day. So Woo, why don't you hit us with our quick question?
Yeah. So first off, this comes from a dear friend, Michael Lockovich, aka Lock. Big time fantasy player, loves asking me for trade advice. So he texted me today at work. So let me set the scene for you here. We just got a new dynasty league that we started up, a few months ago. Locke is in the mindset of I'm going to win this year and nobody else is going to. So he is trading every pick like there's no tomorrow, and he wants Mike Evans on his team. What should he be willing to spend for Mike Evans for this season? Because you're assuming that's probably just going to be 1 year that you're getting out of him. It's a one and done for sure. And if you don't win, what was the point?
Well, I guess my question, what's because I haven't looked at Locke's team. What is he looking at?
So his starting lineup is Jordan Love, Saquon Barkley, Josh Jacobs, Justin Jefferson, Devontae Adams, George Kittle, George Pickens, Calvin Ridley, Debo, Brock Purdy. And the bench is a bunch of nobodies.
And a bunch of nobodies on bench, so you'd love to see that. Listen, if you're going for it, I say you push the second. You try to trade the second, and maybe one piece, probably like an extra receiver, to whoever the Mike Evans manager is. If I'm giving Locke advice right now, I'm looking at his roster. I'd probably say you give up a second and maybe Troy Franklin, maybe Hollywood Brown, and see if you can get yourself Mike Evans.
Listen to my thought. This is one I had kind of off the top here, but this is my reaction. At first, it's like, why not send George Pickens for Mike Evans and something else? Why not try and get something else out of it?
Something in return for that? Okay.
Or like maybe even a Calvin Ridley. I guess, age-wise, that would kind of be a one-for-one swap, so you'd probably have to add something with Ridley. True. But because of the rest of, you have Justin Jefferson, you have Saquon, you have Josh Jacobs.
I would say hold on to Ridley, though, because I think Ridley's going to see a crazy amount of targets.
Right, so then do you go the route of Pickens for Mike Evans plus? Is that an option you would explore?
I think I would explore the Pickens for Mike Evans plus.
Because his picks look like the Sahara Desert. He has a 26 first rounder, a 27 first rounder, and that's pretty much it.
He doesn't even have the second, so never forget whatever I said.
Well, he has a 26 second. I mean, he has a couple seconds, but he's definitely been shipping these out, and he's going to be shipping them out because that's his style, which I respect.
Yep.
But at some point, if you don't win, you're screwed. You have nothing to. You can't go 0-15 the next year and say, but I have a banner hanging up right now.
Correct.
So I don't know.
So I'm just looking at Keep Trade Cuts database of recent trades with Mike Evans. I'm seeing something like Mike Evans for Travis Etienne in a 26th third.
Okay.
I'm seeing Mike Evans and Kamara for Bucky in a 26 first.
So now for sure.
I'm seeing a deal made on the 28th of July. Mike Evans for the 305 in this year's rookie draft.
Like a third round?
Yeah, but it's the 305. You know, like because you can put, the thing is rookie picks get more valuable when you get closer to that rookie draft because you can put a name to the pick.
Yeah,
like at least that's why I'm saying like a second now, because you have no idea who it is, and like you know, if Locke's going all in, his second could be the 211, 210, 212. You know what I mean, somewhere around there.
Yeah.
Interesting. I'm curious to see what he gets out of it. So
I told him that you just can't spend too much.
No,
like because he has.
You can't spend a first for Mike Evans.
Yeah, I think that's
flat out
worst
blank.
Case scenario.
You cannot spend the first.
Right.
So I mean,
he's got some decisions to
so
make.
I think it's a second and lower than is like the highest you're willing
or
to spend.
Or if you want to go the opposite route of trying to get something with Evans, if you give up a guy like Pickens.
Right. So we will see how it goes. Best of luck to you, Locke, as you try to go all in this year, because it's a wild ride when you go all in. But anyways, we're going to shift gears to NFL news. So like I said, ladies and gentlemen, training camp has started. We're getting news here and there. We're getting injury scares, a la Justin Fields. I don't think we've been on the podcast to talk about that one. What was going through your mind when that Justin Fields news came across your feed?
So day starts. I'm here. I'm at I'm trying to keep myself at bay for the Jets. I try to do that every year. It never really works. So I'm really going to try and hunker down this year. I'm trying to keep myself at like a mid-tier excitement level. But I'm eating all of the garbage, as my friend Jake Owen would say, of the training camp news, and I'm so in on Fields. So I'm riding high. Then he's taken down on a cart, and I am just I don't want anybody to talk to me anymore. Just round 463 of something going terribly wrong for the Jets before anything good can happen. And then it comes out that he just dislocated his toe. He's day-to-day. We're back. He's fine.
I was going to say, literally, I think it was the next day he was in team drills.
Can we talk about why he got taken out on the cart like that?
Well, first of all, it was the worst reporting I've ever heard, because what came across, it was like an Adam Schefter tweet, was that he was taken out on a cart point blank, and that was it. But then, if you get to the Jet beat reporters, then they were saying, no, he did a play, limped to the sideline, and then they took him on a cart to the locker room. So it's like, that's completely different than being taken out on a cart with no other context involved. You know what I mean?
All I know is we're all the way back.
So
all the way back.
All the way back.
Super Bowl's back on.
But so let that just be kind of like an example of, training camp news that you hear. Not every good news is great news. I'm over here pumping up Quentin Johnson. He could absolutely flame out and be nothing.
Slow news day.
Right. But also it could be, on the other side of the spectrum, like Wu and Justin Fields, where you think all hope is lost and it was really not that big of a deal. So take training camp news, please, with a grain of salt as we go into these. But first piece of news that we have, Titans wide receiver Treylon Burks breaks his collarbone, and the next day is injured waived. This is sad.
Can I hang a banner for myself for the worst rookie draft pick of all time?
Yes,
Treylon Burks.
Yes, you can.
But the problem is, do I make a Treylon Burks or do I make a Jonathan Mingo? Because I have options.
You do have both. Well, let's say Mingo, because he's still on a team technically.
Okay.
Treylon Burks is not. So if you haven't heard this news already, Treylon Burks, who was working his way back from a knee injury, I want to say it was an ACL, but I don't want to say that specifically. He gets hurt in training camp and he breaks his collarbone. And then just to add, insult to injury, the Titans just, injured waive him the next day. So, I can't remember the draft. I want to say it was the 2022 NFL draft.
Burks was with London and Wilson.
So was that 22?
21.
21. So I remember that draft when the Titans decided to trade, A.J. Brown, because they refused to pay him a big contract.
Wait, no, Burks was...
I think he was a year before that.
Yeah, he was.
So was that 20?
Yeah.
So
I forget who else
whatever year that was, I remember them trading A.J. Brown to Philadelphia for this pick to be Treylon Burks, who was the A.J. Brown replacement. And, they thought they had their guy, and he just never was able to get get it off the ground. You know what I mean? So you feel bad for a guy like that. Hopefully he has a speedy recovery and is able to make some sort of comeback, but it's not looking good for our boy.
Yeah. He was in 2022.
He was 22.
I don't know why I'm like struggling to think of that draft.
That was that was the Breece Hall Sauce Gardner draft.
Yeah, but that was Garrett Wilson too. Well, now I got it. Now
we got to dive into it now
because it was okay. So it was Drake London, Garrett Wilson, and Treylon Burks.
Yes,
it was that draft.
It was that draft, but. Yeah, I don't know. Do we see him play for another team, or you think his NFL career is done?
He's done.
Dunzo, yeah.
Done.
All right, let's turn into positive. Broncos wide receiver Cortland Sutton agrees to a 4-year, $92 million extension.
That's a lot of money.
Huge. 4 years, though.
Isn't he 29?
I believe he is. So he's locked up for the next – I mean, I don't know the specifics of the contract. It could be something crazy where, there's some void years in there. I'm going to take a look at Spot Track as to just check to see if that is posted.
I mean, clearly they're confident in this
but,
guy.
I mean, kind of huge, right? Bo Nix has a number one receiver now that's kind of locked in for the next couple of years.
He's going to be a name I'm looking at in redraft, that's for sure.
I was going to say,
I have been in one dynasty league, which is huge. My team's going to suck, but
so I guess give me the 2025 scope for Cortland Sutton. You think? Because, I mean, listen, the man is known for double-digit touchdowns almost every single year, but, is that something that we see again, or?
I mean, right now he's going at the 504 behind Metcalf, DJ Moore. I think I like him more than DK Metcalf.
Really?
I don't know if I'm willing to say that yet. I think I like him more than DJ Moore, which is weird. I think there's a lot of mouths to feed in Chicago. Devontae Smith and Zay Flowers are behind him. We'll talk about Devontae Smith again later, but I do like him more than Devontae Smith. I don't like him more than Flowers. Denver's really weird for me. I feel like last year was a fun, exciting season for them, and then I expected a lot of big moves out of them this offseason. They kind of seemed they added players, but it's not these big flashy names. Maybe that was intentional.
But they went defense, and I think betting odds to win. I mean, obviously the Chiefs are number one, but they're the second best odds to win the AFC West.
That's
gotta
piss you off.
So listen, I'm okay with it.
Okay,
just let it sit below the surface. I'm not going to talk about it.
I like that.
Contract information is not up for Cortland Sutton, but he is locked up through the 2028 season. So his age 33 season, he will be a part of the Denver Broncos.
Yikes. Making almost 20 or making 20 mil.
Something crazy like that. Browns quarterback Kenny Pickett suffers a mild hamstring injury amid QB competition in training camp. Is this it for Kenny Pickett? We done? We're done with the experience, or does he still have a chance to come back from this and potentially get the starting job?
Well, I mean, since it's Cleveland and the whole situation's a dumpster fire, he's going to have an opportunity to come back. My question is, to be honest, the Kenny Pickett news, whatever. The more important question is, what are your rankings right now of all the Cleveland quarterbacks in the situation? Who is starting week 1, and then who follows that? I know my list.
Including this Pickett news?
Yeah, including the Pickett news.
Including this Pickett news, it's Flacco, Shedeur, Dylan Gabriel.
Okay.
I don't know if you heard, but Shedeur was getting run with the 2s today.
Okay, so. I didn't hear that. I do have Flacco at 1. I've been leaning Dylan Gabriel 2, even though I want Shedeur to be 2.
What is this?
Well, it's not.
I thought we were Team Shedeur. What are you doing here?
I am Team Shedeur, but
you're not saying
I have to go based off what the practice is, from what I've seen. If they're going to give Gabriel some run, I have to put some respect on his name and put him at 2. I don't want him to be 2, but I have to go with what the people who get paid to run that organization tell me.
Is he getting run over Shedeur right now?
That's what I've seen. I also seen Joe Flacco, Shedeur trying to talk to Flacco, and he's like, please get away from me. I want nothing to do with you. Maybe that's just Flacco's demeanor, but that's what I see out of the video.
Whoa. This was 2 months ago, so this is before, but Gabriel was getting some first team reps.
Yeah.
But Shedeur?
I think the Shedeur, the thing that I think of with Shedeur and Flacco, it's when you're a freshman and you make the varsity team and you're trying to hang out with the seniors and get out of my face.
That's hilarious.
Please stop talking to me.
It says here that Sanders appears to be behind the other players in the Browns quarterback room early in training camp. He still has plenty of time, including the preseason action, to work his way up. So they're seeing it right now that he's behind Gabriel. So, all right.
I'll tell you what I want to see is in the preseason, I want first half Dylan Gabriel, second half Shedeur for all 4 games. or
Yeah,
I don't care
we
what
need
the
it.
order is, but I
I was
just
gonna
want
say
them to
Flacco
split
doesn't
halves.
need to play. And,
Split halves.
I mean, Pickett probably needs to play, but like
Yeah, he
he's
stinks.
hurt, so it is what it is. And then
Super Bowl champion,
Super Bowl champion Kenny Pickett is
not with Steelers.
Yeah. Last piece of news: tight end Jake Ferguson agrees to a 4-year contract extension worth $52 million in new money, with $30 million in total guarantees.
Love it.
This is reported by NFL Network insider Ian Rappaport.
I'm drinking the Cowboys Kool-Aid.
So I mean, listen, you were
for fantasy purposes.
You've been a Jake Ferguson like rider.
Fergie.
So
Fergalicious.
this is good
Come
news
on.
for you, huh?
Oh, I'm all in.
Yeah.
I'm
see.
like I said, I'm drinking the Cowboys Kool-Aid, but for fantasy purposes only. I don't care how they do in the NFL, like regular season or whatever their record is. There's gonna be a lot of fancy points to be had in that roster.
I'm sorry, Jess. They're gonna finish third in that division. I hate to say it, but someone's got to say it.
Right.
All right. Now it is time to get into our main topic of the show, ladies and gentlemen. Listen, we're gonna get negative today. We're gonna get negative. It is what it is, but we're doing it in the sense to get you ready for your fantasy football drafts, to avoid these landmines or flops, as I'm going to call it today. So today's topic of the show is fantasy flops of 2025.
Some will call it the Marcus Smart episode.
You could call it the Marcus Smart episode. You could call it the Greg Oden episode. Like the Jamarcus Russell. You can call it whatever you want. But listen, we are picking players to flop based on their ADP, their situation, anything like that. What I want to say is that this is not a declaration that this player is going to suck, right? So I'm not sitting here standing on my soapbox saying that this player is going to be terrible, anything like that. I am just giving you we are giving you, the potential things or, reasons why it could go wrong based on their ADP, based on their current situation, could be the total team situation. Just giving you all the information because, listen, we love fantasy football. We love, playing fantasy football, and we always give a positive spin on things. And very seldom do people give, kind of the it could go wrong kind of way, So that's kind of essentially what this is here for you to do.
I think last year I drafted my team thinking that, players who would flop would get me more points. Turns out it doesn't work out that way.
You picked
really
all
doesn't.
the flops last year. So, listen, you have to look at, the what could go wrong side of things. So, that's what we're here to do. So I'm going to kick it off with our first one. So like how we always do our candidates for this, we do 2 for quarterback, 2 for running back, 2 wide receiver, 2 tight end. I'm going to kick it off with the quarterback position. My first one, drum roll please, is Brock Purdy.
Ooh.
Yeah, you hate to see it. Brock Purdy right now going as the quarterback 13 at the 9-12 spot. Listen, Brock Purdy made his money last year, got a big money contract this offseason, finally signed to be a franchise quarterback. And what do the 49ers give in return?
Nothing.
They give him absolutely nothing. He currently has 0 weapons outside of Christian McCaffrey and George Kittle. And it's Brandon Ayuk with a torn ACL who's coming back, who's not going to be ready for week 1 or probably the first half of the season. You have Ricky Pearsall, who is already showing up on the PUP list, which is not what you want to see for someone, a second-year wide receiver who didn't play the majority of last year because of another injury. And you have Jawan Jennings, who decided to hold out. He finally comes back and joins training camp, and now he has a calf injury. He's out. And then last we have is Demarcus Robinson, who's playing, but he's got a suspension coming down his way for a DUI situation that he has. So, like, during training camp, this is the time where the chemistry builds. This is where you work out the kinks. You put in nuanced plays based on players, archetypes and things like that. But that's not happening for Brock Purdy right now. He's not building the relationship with over half of his wide receiver room, and it's great. Like, he's got a stronger relationship with Kittle and McCaffrey, who they don't need to show anything. They're in their late 20s, early 30s, and they don't need to practice as much as these younger guys who need to build the rapport with Brock Purdy. So that's at a disadvantage for Brock Purdy. Obviously the next thing I talk about is that the 49ers have the easiest schedule in football. That's great. That's awesome. But the defense is severely depleted compared to last year. They've lost multiple stars. They may have the easiest strength of schedule, but that just means that, paired with this, terrible defense, whoever they play is going to always be in the game, because this defense, I mean, unless Robert Saleh has the magic wand coming back, you know what I mean, is going to fix everything for this 49ers defense. They're just going to, be Swiss cheese this whole time. And the 49ers, so with that being said, the 49ers are probably going to have to throw a lot to stay in games. They can't rely on Christian McCaffrey the entire time. And do they really want Brock Purdy throwing like the entire game? I think, Brock Purdy's game, I think, and this is no disrespect to him because it works for him, Brock Purdy's a game manager. Like, he hands the ball off, and then in play action, he rips it when he can. You know what I mean? Because the play action has filled the box up. But if you're throwing all the time, I think that's bad for business if you're San Fran. So going as the quarterback 13, you're probably thinking, you can sit and wait in drafts and take Brock Purdy, and that's great, and that may be a detriment for you. And I just want to point out these key factors going into the 2025 season.
Yeah, this front office did not help him out at all. They gave him this big shiny contract, keys to the Lambo. There's no gas in the car. I mean, who is he supposed to throw the ball to?
Correct.
I mean, the whole Ayuk situation it has never made any sense to me from day one. This whole big contract dispute, wants all this money. I thought he was deserving of it. Finally give him the money, and it's like, oh, by the way,
give him nothing.
I think we spent too much. Like, maybe let's get rid of this guy. It's like, I don't know. I want to know who was a part of those negotiations, who approved it, because someone clearly made a mistake and went over somebody's head, because that you don't just turn around and change your mind on that. And then, like the rest of their guys, like you mentioned, Ricky Pearsall is injured again. Juwan Jennings is injured again. Demarcus Robinson might not even play. It's like he's throwing a 30-year-old George Kittle, who I like a lot.
Absolutely.
But at some point, you had to think, like, okay, the wear and tear is going to be coming up on this guy. NFL defenses are not stupid. Like, they can game plan around if George Kittle is the primary, weapon in this offense. Shanahan can really only do so much scheming him open.
Yeah. So, I mean, we'll have to see how that goes. But I'm looking at a name here for the quarterback position.
I'm sorry.
I feel disrespected, but go ahead and tell me why this player is a potential flop.
It's Justin Herbert, and
Yep.
I really want to start this out with, like, I really like Justin Herbert. Don't get me wrong. Like, this is not.
It's okay. You're saying it with your actions.
Yeah.
It's all right.
Yeah.
We'll remember this.
This is not hate on Justin Herbert, but it's to me, it's clear what identity this Charger team wants to have, and it's to run the ball down your throat and to play tough defense. Outside of Ladd, which, I'll finish this point first, but outside of Ladd, there's really no real established wide receiver 2. Quentin Johnson's a question mark. Trey Harris is a question mark. There are some interesting stories coming out with Quentin Johnson. Yes, the clips look great. He's had a good camp so far. He's not playing in the Hall of Fame game, which means they have some confidence in him being a starter. Trey Harris is an interesting, developing player that they can kind of mold how they want because he's such a raw talent. Outside of that point, yes, to Herbert's defense, last year they also still didn't have an established wide receiver 2, but you can only go so many years in a row doing the same thing over and over before NFL teams are like, hey, they only have one guy catching the ball. Like, I feel like we can key in on him and make Herbert have to throw to somebody else. So right now he's being drafted at the 9-10, which is kind of late. Like, that's kind of, I'm usually someone who's in redraft sitting on quarterback. Once I get to the 8th round, that's where quarterbacks start to pique my interest, and that's where I'm starting to look. He's a QB 11 off the board. I don't know if he's actually going to finish inside of the top 12. And like you mentioned with Purdy, if you're sitting there waiting on quarterback, and these are the guys that you're looking at, I mean, yeah, you waited, but now, there's other names behind him who I like. So, I mean, he's going ahead of Caleb Williams. Well, I think the offense is going to be much more explosive than the Chargers in terms of just fantasy points that can be scored. He's going ahead of Dak, who I think, in terms of fantasy points that can be scored on that Cowboys offense, I like the Cowboys odds more than I like the Chargers and how they're going to go about scoring these fantasy points. He's going ahead of Justin Fields. No, this is not a Jets, banging the drum for the Jets. But Fields can use his legs. There's so much fantasy upside
quarterbacks are broken
with quarterbacks who can do that. So, as an NFL football player, I love Justin Herbert. As a fantasy asset, not exactly sold.
Listen, I know we joke back and forth and things like that, but I love this pick, and it pains me to say it because I I wouldn't believe it if they didn't make the moves in the running game like they did in the offseason. If they didn't go and bring in, first of all, even bringing in Najee Harris was a massive upgrade compared to J.K. Dobbins and Gus Edwards from last year. And then you double down and you use your first round pick to take someone like Omarion Hampton, who looks phenomenal in training camp right now. So like with those things, like that's what Harbaugh wants to do. Harbaugh wants to, I'm going to put 6 offensive linemen, and I'm gonna run power I, and I'm just gonna run the ball down your face, and then eventually I'm gonna use some play action when you get sick and tired of it, and gas you. But everything is gonna be predicated off of the run, and I think they're going to do that to success. And personally, as a Chargers fan, I think that this is probably the best case scenario for someone like Justin Herbert. NFL football wise, fantasy wise, this is terrible. I don't know if we see a 5,000-yard season from him ever again. But I think for, his legacy in the NFL, I think this is going to be better. They're going to win more games. They're going to go to more playoffs, and that's going to be better for him. For fantasy, that sucks, but, as the NFL player, I think he's still going to have a great career.
I want to point out these numbers really quick. So 2020 was his rookie year.
Yep.
So 2020 through 2022 were his best fantasy finishes. He was the QB9, QB2, QB11. The numbers that attach to those seasons: 595 passing attempts, 672, 699.
Yep.
Last 2 seasons, 2023, he only played 13 games. He was the quarterback 17, so we don't have to pay attention to that too much. Last year, he plays all 17 games. He's a quarterback 13 for fantasy, 504 attempts. That's at least 100 attempts less at the minimum than those 3 seasons.
Yep.
And it's like, yet attempts to me are opportunities. Whether or not that attempt ended up being a good or a bad opportunity, I don't care. It's that number. If it's going to be high, there's more opportunities to score fantasy points.
And I think that number is a lot higher than what it really could be, because, you think back to their season last year. They went out strong running the ball, and you look at Herbert's, splits in the first half, of the year. He had 26-20, 18-27. And then, that was kind of when Dobbins fizzled out and, they weren't really as explosive offensively. So then they turned to Herbert, and then you started to see 34, 39, 32 passing attempts. Like if Hampton and Harris are able to stay healthy and they can bounce back and forth between the two of them as the season goes on, I don't think Herbert has games where he's over 35 passing attempts. He may have a couple games where he gets to 30, but I don't think it's going to be as it was like last year. And when it happened, you see there was a stretch from week 8 to week 12. He was the quarterback 12, 12, 8, 8, 12, so I just don't see that happening going this year with all the moves that they made.
It's a similar argument to Mahomes, where the Chiefs have kind of changed their style on how they win their games, because obviously they continue to win games at a high level, but they're not doing it scoring 30-plus points every single game.
Right.
So it's a very similar story there, where obviously Mahomes and Justin Herbert, very good NFL quarterbacks. But when it comes to fantasy, like the production just doesn't transfer over to these scoring systems.
No, not at all. Moving into the running back position, the candidate I have who is going to potentially flop this year is Bucky Irving.
Hate it.
A.K.A. Woo's boy. I'm sorry. I saw earlier you put Herbert in, so I had to get my pound of flesh back.
I do have some thoughts here based off of this. So go ahead.
So listen, Bucky Irving right now is going at the 208 as the running back 8, which in my mind, first impression I take is
expensive.
Insane for a former 4th-round pick who just so happened to kind of take over that starting role. Like he was the running back. Being drafted as a running back 8 is kind of insane to me, but. Let's continue. Last year was a great year for him, and I'm not going to take that away from him. He had 1,122 yards, 8 touchdowns, 47 receptions for 392 yards receiving, and was the running back 13. Is there more there to improve on? I mean, I really don't know. That's a pretty solid season with some solid numbers, and that was the running back 13. Now you're talking, jumping 5 more spots worth of fantasy points. I don't know where he finds it. He had, if I'm looking last year, he had a total of 259 opportunities in total. I think in order for him to get up to the RB8 range that you're expecting, he's going to have to take 300 plus opportunities in order to get there. And my question is can he get there for being 5'10", 95 pounds? Like that's a concern for me because, we saw him, the staple moment for Bucky Irvin that sticks back in my head in 2024 is the game against Carolina where he had a phenomenal game. Like, I'm not going to take anything away. He was the running back one. He was amazing. But that very next week when he played Las Vegas, he only played 16% of the snaps and was the running back 49 because he was so hurt from that game before. And he's going to be expected to have more opportunities, either more rushing attempts or more targets. Is he going to be able to hold up the entire way? And the last piece of thing that I want to point out is that one of the big things that we look for in elite fantasy production in someone who's a top 10 running back is if they have elite production as a receiver. But Rachaad White is the receiver for this team. Like, he had more receptions at the running back position than Bucky did. Bucky had a total of 47 receptions. I don't know what I have Rachaad White down. I know I looked at it earlier, but it was more. I will vet that and get that to you. But, with all of these, pieces of information, this is kind of why I have him as, as a potential flop. So, as we look at it right now, he's going at the 208. And around him, so behind him, Josh Jacobs. I'd probably take Josh Jacobs over Bucky Irving.
100%.
Jonathan Taylor. I think I would take Jonathan Taylor with the current quarterback situation, and I think he's going to get more work. Kyron Williams, I'm definitely taking him over Bucky. And call me crazy on this one, and this person has started to kind of like win me over. I'm a Chase Brown fan, and I think I would
you lost me there.
I think I would take Chase Brown, and it's only because he is the only guy. He gets all the rushing, and he gets all the receiving work. And when the Bengals were, always trying to throw themselves into games, Chase Brown was the receiving back. So him getting those, dump offs from Burrow and things like that are going to kind of add in his favor. That's why I think I would take Chase Brown over Bucky Irving.
Yeah, so I mean, for me here, I get why you're apologizing, but the reason why I'm a Bucky guy, so to say, I get to keep him in the 11th round.
Yeah.
So
which is elite. That's
where the value I see. So like he basically has to, he can like play half the season and outperform where I'd be taking him, in the draft. If he wasn't my 11th round keeper, there's about a 0% chance I'm taking him at his ADP. So I understand this argument completely. It's just that where I'm able to keep him in the draft, I mean, that's a smash in my opinion. But yeah, no, the 208 is incredibly, expensive. I was just looking at the other running backs going around him. And, like you said, like Josh Jacobs, I'm taking Josh Jacobs. Jonathan Taylor, I'm taking him. Kyron Williams. I wouldn't go as far as Chase Brown. Brees.
Take your king.
Brees. I think I'm taking my king there. And then even just, the rest of the positions around there. So if he's at the 208, some receivers in that area, A.J. Brown, Ladd McConkey, JSN, like I think I'd rather have pretty much all of those guys. Drake London at the 205. Like those are names I like way more than Bucky Irving at the 208. I think that's fairly expensive.
Absolutely. I agree with that. So moving on, who's your running back flop for 2025?
I got Joe Mixon. He's currently being drafted at the 501. He's the running back 19 off the board. And what really scares me is the injury news that just came out. He's now currently sidelined with a foot injury. He's expected to miss an extended period of time, and his availability for week 1 is now up in the air. He was placed on the PUP list, the physically unable to perform list. So it's just that injury before this season even starts. Like we've mentioned, these training camp reps matter, even if you're a guy like Joe Mixon who's been in the league for a while. It was a down year for that Texan offense. They bring in a new offensive coordinator. They're probably trying to establish a new offensive scheme, a new playbook, all these things that they have to learn. And for him to be absent in this, that's a big problem for me. The other thing is he's going into his age 30 season, which is not a great number for running backs. And I actually found this really interesting study that was found. This is from Apex Fantasy Football Money Leagues.
Ooh,
I'll be honest,
like
hand up, never heard of these guys up until I found this link. But basically what they did was they defined a peak season for running backs based on age. So they basically they started at 15 PPR points per game being and at least 7 games played during the year, and that's considered a peak season for running backs. So if we look at the age, for that peak season that they just established, all the peak seasons that have happened since 2000, the age that you see the most peak seasons is age 25 with 50. You go all the way down you go over to age 30. There's only been 13 peak seasons that they've considered a peak season.
Yikes.
At age 30. So that's where Joe Mixon is currently at right now, in his career. The other thing is Texans have a really bad offensive line. They traded away Laramie Tunsil, who was by far and away their best offensive line piece that they had. And he's going near guys like Chuba Hubbard, Kenneth Walker, James Conner. All 3 of those guys I'm taking before Joe Mixon.
I would agree.
Even before this injury news. And even last year, he missed some time. And after the bye, just incredibly inefficient. He was the running back 32, 34, 38, and 52.
I would also like to be an apologist for Joe Mixon for that, because I know he was dealing with a high ankle sprain, and that's something that you just never kind of get over during the season. So that's something he kind of had to gut out. But I agree. He's going into his age 30 season and already starting on an injury list that you don't want to see at all, because he's missing valuable time with the offense. A little less, than like a younger guy or a receiver, but still it's important because he's missing valuable time, and hopefully he's able to come back. I need him to, because I just traded for him in Dynasty, but I might
His
be cooked.
biggest argument for him is that he is like the workhorse, but can he continue to do that at age 30? Like, not everybody's Derrick Henry.
Right, exactly. And they also signed Nick Chubb. They drafted Woody Marks, who people are, if
beating
they're
the drum for.
Yeah, they're beating the drum. If you're in the know for it, like, people love Woody Marks. So like, it could be, the ship may have already sailed for Joe Mixon.
Yeah,
sad to say. But moving into the wide receiver position, my flop for 2025 I have for you is Terry McLaurin, going right now at the 309 as the wide receiver 17. He's also going to be playing at his age 30 season on a contract year. All these things are bad for business. To even
didn't he end up getting a contract?
Did he? Did I miss that?
Let me look while you keep going.
Because I did this with the assumption that he came to camp without a contract and he's just going to kind of play out the rest of the year. If he did, it kind of changes things. But even still, those are all just caveats to the on-field performance that, gives me a reason that he potentially is going to be a flop. So just getting into that, McLaurin had a phenomenal year last year. He was the wide receiver 7, and he had 17 touchdowns. But what I want to read to you, Wu, are the years other than this past year, his touchdown totals. So this is starting from 2023 going back to his rookie season for total touchdowns. So he had 4, 5, 5, 4, 7. 7 from his rookie year is the highest that he's ever had in total touchdowns. So if you even, let's just, for an exercise, let's just take his 13 that he had from last year and let's just cut it to 7. If you change that, that's his best season that he's ever had. That was his rookie season. And if you do that, he goes from the wide receiver 7 to the wide receiver 17. So the reason why I do that is because touchdowns aren't a sticky stat. Like it's in the grand scheme of things, he did finish at the wide receiver 7, and he is being drafted at the wide receiver 17. But I think that is being baked in to his ADP right now of like he's not going to score a lot of touchdowns. And it could be worse. You know what I mean? Like I know he showed up to training camp, but I believe he has an injury, right? He's got an ankle injury or something like that.
And also he did not sign a contract.
So
I
he
must have been
didn't.
thinking of somebody else.
Right. So he shows up to training camp without a deal and then is already on the PUP, so with an injury. So we don't know the specificity of this ankle injury or how long this is going to keep him out, but the longer it keeps him out, the worse it is for his overall performance in the start of the year. Like I think back to when CeeDee Lamb held out, and this is CeeDee Lamb, who's a young spry guy, but
right.
held out, came into training camp, but then also had a injury riddled season. Got the bag and got his contract, but wasn't there at the start of training camp, and it was a detriment to his fantasy performance during the year.
Yeah, you can tell.
I can see that this is happening. For Terry McLaurin. So I'm personally in the camp of any player who kind of holds in any portion of training camp. Because of that, or they're losing valuable reps and bringing you up to speed in training camp, and that hurts you overall in the future.
Yeah, I mean, I have a lot of respect for Terry McLaurin.
I love him.
Hanging out in Washington through just that continuous dumpster fire year after year. Finally gets a guy like Jaden Daniels who throws in the ball. I mean, and you see what happens. But like you said, man, we can't sit here and predict touchdowns as much as we would like to, especially for this offense specifically. Like Terry's going to be the one. I'm personally a little bearish on Deebo Samuel and what he can bring to the table this year for that team. So for him to be a one on an offense that has Jaden Daniels, who took the league by storm last year, went to an NFC Championship game. I mean, you would think all these factors, going into next year, everybody would be so excited about Terry McLaurin, but you just can't sit here and predict touchdowns. There's no basis behind that, which it just makes this situation really tough.
Right, and so I think I said 309. I meant 311 was his ADP, but even so, after his spot at 311, the guys you can get after him is Marvin Harrison Jr., who you'd rather have than Terry McLaurin, Mike Evans, who I probably would take the one last ride in a redraft with Mike Evans over him, George Kittle, who we both love and think is going to smash, Omarion Hampton, who potentially could be the RB1, and the list goes on and on. There are
round's way too expensive.
Yeah, there's a lot of names that you could take instead of Terry McLaurin, and it puts you in a better position, for other names later in the draft.
Yeah, I like it.
So, moving to your pick, Wu, for a wide receiver flop, who do you got?
I got Devontae Smith, and another guy who I really like and respect as a player, but when it comes to fantasy, I'm just not in on him this year. Right now, he's being drafted at the 505, wide receiver 24 off the board. And really, my argument isn't where he's being drafted right now. Like, I don't think he's too expensive. I don't think it's a situation like that where if you draft him, you can be burned based on where he can finish. I think my argument is more so the names surrounding where he is. So, when it comes to Devontae Smith, he has one top 15 finish in his career. He's playing on a team that just rode the wave of their insane running game, that just won a Super Bowl last year. Like I said, I love what he brings as a player. I love who he is as a person. But if it ain't broke, you don't fix it. And I do not see the Eagles changing up their mindset here on how effective they were able to run the ball last year. They bring back pretty much the same team. I don't see why they would change up that their thought process here. He already plays next to a dominant one in A.J. Brown. So if there is any passing volume, most of that's going to be going A.J. Brown's way as it is. Last year was very up and down. A lot of minimal consistency. For example, weeks 6 through 11 last year, he went wide receiver 20, wide receiver 102, wide receiver 14, wide receiver 15, wide receiver 75, wide receiver 55. So on a week-to-week basis, you have no idea what you were getting out of him.
Yeah, he's all over the place.
And I just, like I said, with the Eagles on how dominant they were running the ball last year, I just don't see there being enough passing volume in this offense, especially for somebody who would be a third option on this team with A.J. Brown and Saquon Barkley. Some would even argue Jalen Hurts being an option with, how effective that tush push is, especially in the red zone. And to be, he's being taken around guys like Xavier Worthy, Zay Flowers, Cortland Sutton, who we talked about earlier, George Pickens, Ted McMillan. These names, I think, have way more upside than I think Devontae Smith does. I just don't think there's enough passing volume in Philly.
I totally see where you're coming from. I think I personally will leave the light on for Devontae Smith, and the only reason why I would do that is I can't remember the exact stat, but it's something along the lines of an NFL running back who gets over 350 opportunities the following year, it's always way down, way, way, way down. And I think the only person who's ever been the outlier for that is Derrick Henry. So I agree with you. I think if it isn't broke, you don't fix it. But I think I don't know if Saquon can handle the sheer number of opportunities that he got last year and through the entire playoffs again for another full season. I think the human body can only take so much that like he eventually will break down. And then you look back or you look into the depth chart of the Philadelphia Eagles and you see that it's Will Shipley and A.J. Dillon.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, if Barkley were to go down, that offense has to completely come into a sense of metamorphosis and, you know, be something that it's the complete opposite of what it is. I think if they get down in the red zone and it's close and, you know, you see the Jalen Hurts tush push 100%, but I think getting to that point, I think it's going to look completely different than if Barkley were there.
I hear the wear and tear argument, but what has Saquon showed us to think to not, or let me rephrase that. What has Saquon done over his career that is making you think that he wouldn't be able to take that wear and tear?
I mean, you look back so obviously his rookie season he played 16 games, but then sophomore season plays 13, so he missed 4 games or 3 games. Then in 2020 season he only plays 2 games. 2021 season he only plays 13 games. You know, played 16 his second and last year with the Giants, 14, and then played 16 with the Eagles. Like there's a small little stint where Saquon Barkley missed some games. Like
that's also when he's on the Giants where he literally is the offense.
I agree, but he was also literally the offense when playing for the Philadelphia Eagles too. Right? That's what got them a Super Bowl, and 388 opportunities where he had a 370 one year and a 382 his rookie season. I don't know at age what is he 28? Like at age 29, I think it's going to be tough to give him 388 opportunities again. That's all I'm saying.
Valid.
So, we are moving into our last position group. We are in the tight ends. Zach, you're going to love this one. My tight end pick is Mark Andrews.
Don't draft him.
Don't draft him. Unless you're Zach, then draft him. Please go ahead. So Mark Andrews is going at the tight end 7 right now, at the 7-10, and he's coming off a career year for touchdowns. But there's a caveat that I want to point out that yes, I think last year he was the tight end. I gotta find it again. I think last year he was the tight end 6 or 7, and with that for the first 6 weeks, he was the tight end 20. Tight end 20. Bad. And only had one touchdown. Remember those
like one target.
Remember those first 2 weeks when he had absolutely no targets Dicey. And put up a goose egg.
Dicey. And
people were losing their minds. And then we look at week 7 to 18. He was the 10-4 and had 10 touchdowns in that stretch. And then so that happens, and I'm pretty sure in the playoffs he was the reason why they lost that AFC championship.
Oh, he sure was.
AFC divisional game.
Ball was right in the breadbasket.
Right in the breadbasket, and he drops. But going into the offseason of 2025, remember the talk was that Andrews isn't going to be on this team, whether he's going to be released or they're going to be traded. Like one way or another, Mark Andrews isn't going to be on this team. People are going to want to trade for him. Eventually, it didn't happen. But the vibe right now is that this is Mark Andrews' last year as a Baltimore Raven. Like he will not be there past this year. And to kind of put the nail in the coffin almost in that is that you got a young talented tight end waiting in the wings in Isaiah Likely. And yes, Zach, I know you're probably screaming at the podcast right now that he just rolled his ankle. He's going to be fine. Don't worry about it. And the thing with Isaiah Likely is that he could eventually just take over this tight end 1 position by the end of the year, and they could essentially just phase out Mark Andrews and say, listen, you're not a part of the team's future. We're not even going to give you playing time on the field. Like
give the ball to Zay Flowers.
Think about Cooper Kupp last year in 2024. Like when Puka was healthy and, they were moving in, like they were going into the playoffs, but they purposely were leaving Cooper Kupp off the field because he was not in their future plans.
Yeah.
So you could see a similar situation like that with Mark Andrews. And listen, I love Mark Andrews. I think he's a great tight end, but the writing is on the wall here. Like I think it's his time in Baltimore is done after this year.
Yeah, I'm definitely out on Mark Andrews, especially in the 7th round. I think there's still a lot of value there for other positions. So I definitely wouldn't be willing to draft him where at his ADP. I echo pretty much everything you said here. If last year if last year wasn't enough for you to think like, hey, this might be it for him, I don't know what else he has to show you. If he didn't score 11 touchdowns, I mean, I don't even think he'd be on this episode because it would be such a no-brainer.
Yeah, to just not even have him in general.
Right.
So, Woo, why don't you round us out with your tight end flop for this year?
Yeah, Zach, cover your ears.
Oh, double time.
It's going to be Jonnu Smith, the newly acquired tight end for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Right now he's going at the 803. He's the tight end 8 off the board. My first bullet point, I really think it's the most important one. I hate Arthur Smith. I want nothing. I really want nothing to do with him. Just to be as frank as possible.
Zach is punching air right now.
Yeah, I just ruined his drive to work. I'm sorry, man. Somebody has to say it. But Jonnu Smith's coming off a career year where he's the tight end 4 out in Miami, literally out of nowhere. I got him off of waivers in Dynasty. That is basically impossible to get any sort of value off of the waivers in a Dynasty league. So the fact that I think that goes to show, I think that was kind of a one-hit wonder kind of season for him. Now he's in a new offense where I expect DK to dominate all the targets. That quarterback that they have, he's 41 years old. I'm not looking forward to. I'm not optimistic on that passing offense. He tied his career high for touchdowns in a season last year with 8. Like we've mentioned, touchdowns are not a sticky stat. I really expect the Steelers, to lean on their defense, kind of like they always do. They're going to win sloppy games. They're going to grind games out. They're somehow going to be a couple games over 500 to make it into the playoffs. I don't see a lot of points being scored by this offense, and I don't think they really need them to. I think that defense can let them hang around. I think they're going to lean a lot more on their running game with Caleb Johnson. There's just so many factors here where I'm just so out on Jonnu Smith. And, he's being drafted near David Njoku, Tyler Warren. Njoku, I could hear maybe an argument if you wanted Jonnu Smith, just because of Cleveland's quarterback situation. But for Tyler Warren, I don't really think it's a question. I'm even someone who's skeptical on Tyler Warren in that whole Indianapolis situation. So for me to sit here and say I'd rather have Tyler Warren over, a player like Jonnu Smith, I think that just goes to show on kind of where my mindset is, because I just don't see, Miami last year, it was a fun experience. Mike McDaniel is a creative offensive mind, got really creative with Jonnu Smith around the line of scrimmage and manufacturing targets for this guy. Yeah, Arthur Smith was banging his drum for Jonnu Smith all year, or all off season, I should say, saying how much he wants this guy on his team. So you would think there might be some positives there in terms of getting him involved in the offense and getting him the ball. But it's like they also have Pat Freiermuth. Like I said, that quarterback they have is 41 years old, coming off just I'm just not optimistic about the Steelers at all. Like their offense, it's not someone where I'm like, yeah, I really want that guy on my fantasy team.
You want to hear a crazy stat that I was just doing while you were going off? Is weeks 1 through I lost my place. Weeks 1 through 10. Do you want to guess what Jonnu Smith was, like tight end wise?
Weeks 1 through 10, I will say he was the tight end 26.
He was the tight end 16.
Jesus.
And then weeks 11 through 18, you want to guess what he was?
He's got to be at least the tight end 3.
He was the tight end 1.
Wow.
1. So think about that. For the first 10 weeks of the season, he was absolute irrelevant for you. Tight end 16.
Oh, wow, yeah.
Like, it's not even worth it. And then you go from the tight end 11, or from week 11 on. So
2, 3, 3,
right,
5, 2, 10.
It was a scorching hot run. But, by the time you hit fantasy playoffs in week 15, who really had Jonnu Smith on their teams? You know what I mean? I know you picked him off of waivers because you were desperate, and that was the only thing you
Big time
had.
desperate.
And you wrote him to into a championship game. But other than that, nobody else had Jonnu Smith on their team.
No.
You know what I mean? So
And he had 8 touchdowns on the year.
Yeah.
That week 11 through 18 stretch, he scored 7 of those touchdowns.
That's crazy. And that's with the Miami offense, where it's so fast-paced and a lot of plays being run. There are not a lot of plays going to be run on this Pittsburgh offense.
It's slow and methodical.
It's going to be
especially
slow.
with Arthur Smith calling
Absolutely. And they have a running back to actually do it, I believe, and we both believe, in Caleb Johnson. So that's going to be tough, dude.
And their quarterback's 41 years old.
And their quarterback's 41. I don't remember his name, though.
Me neither.
So, but there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. We got through it. Here we are. I think hopefully you guys feel cleansed about it. Hopefully you don't feel too negative about it, especially you, Zach. We've gotten through the flops. Again, just to reiterate before we got into it, we're not making a declaration that this player is going to suck or we're banking on them to suck. We're just giving you the factors on how it could be bad. And, if you believe us, great, that's awesome. If you don't and you have your own set of criteria, that's totally fine. But, you gotta at least have that sort of mindset going into your draft on, this player could potentially not be worth where he's at in his ADP or worth where in the situation he's at, going forward. So you always got to keep that in mind. But again, we appreciate you sticking around, for this episode. If you like what you see, please make sure you give us a follow on our socials: Twitter at Fourth and Fantasy Pod, Instagram and TikTok at Fourth and Fantasy, YouTube at Fourth and Fantasy. Make sure you're giving us a follow, a share, leave a comment because you may see yourself on the show. But with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, we'll see you on the other side.
See you.